On today's episode of The Franchise, we have Aaron Rodgers finally announcing his decision on what he's going to do for the future of his career. He is going to play for the New York Jets next season. What teams in the AFC with this news are contenders? Going to rank every team in the AFC. Also going to take a look at March Madness. Going to give my final four contenders. What teams can contend for a national championship and what teams are likely to make the Final Four. I'm not going to do a full bracket. I have like 6 March Madness brackets. We're just going to do Final Four contenders. And then we have an NL East preview, the last division in Major League Baseball that we have to do before the start of the season. And then we're done, and then it's all about the playoff predictions and just whatever else in Major League Baseball. But before we get into today's episode, the franchise is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. All right, Aaron Rodgers. We've been talking about Aaron Rodgers for months now, for weeks in particular now, about what he's going to do. Is he going to retire? Is he going to return to the Green Bay Packers? Or is he going to go elsewhere? Elsewhere likely being the New York Jets. Well, today we finally got an answer. Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show. And he said a lot. At first, he said he wasn't going to announce the decision today, but then he said that he's going to play for the Jets. So he kind of contradicted himself there, but he said a few things that were interesting. First of all, he said his intention is to play for the Jets, and it's been that since Friday, March 10th. And he said it's been his intention to play for the Jets since Friday, which is interesting because we hadn't really heard. Everyone thought that we were waiting on Aaron Rodgers to make his decision, but apparently he's already made his decision. We're just waiting on the teams to agree to a terms on a trade to send Rodgers to the Jets. Some other things he said real quick. He said there was no wish list of players to bring to the Jets. Yesterday we talked about that wish list. Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, Allen Lazard, Odell Beckham Jr., all guys that apparently Aaron Rodgers wanted, or at least, not all of them, but at least some of them on the Jets in order to officially go there, apparently. He said there's no truth to that, but the Jets also did sign Allen Lazard. So I guess whether or not there is a wish list, that he did get one of his favorite players he's ever played with. And then he also said he was 90% retired pre-darkness retreat. Now, Aaron Rodgers went into a darkness retreat the week after the Super Bowl, and apparently, from what he said, this was the timeline. After the season was over and he had his exit meetings with the Green Bay Packers, the assumption was, what they told him was, take as much time as you need to make a decision. And apparently, he was 90% retired and 10% on coming back to the Packers. And then when he exited his darkness retreat and finally had access to his phone, he said that there was a shift and that the Packers had been shopping Aaron Rodgers and looking to trade him, which apparently prompted Aaron Rodgers to say that he's not done in the NFL and that he's not going to retire now, and he's going to move on elsewhere. And he is going to now play for the New York Jets. Now, the trade's not official. He's still technically a member of the Packers, but sooner rather than later, he will be on the Jets. Before draft day, he will be a Jet. I think, honestly, in the next week, he'll be on the New York Jets. The Packers, apparently, they want 2 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers. Now, I understand. Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs in back-to-back seasons, 2020 and 2021. He also is a Super Bowl champion, the greatest quarterback in franchise history for the Packers, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL all time. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. But he is 39 years old, and he's contemplated retirement for the past 3 seasons. I don't think with him going to the Jets, he's just going to stop contemplating retirement after each season. So 2 first-round picks is a lot to give up for Aaron Rodgers based off of his age and his flirtation with retirement. I think if anything, if you're the Jets, you give the Packers the 13th overall pick or whatever your first round pick is. I think it's number 13 in this year's draft. You give that to the Packers. If they want something else, here's a 4th, here's a 5th a few years from now. But you do not give up 2 first round picks for Aaron Rodgers, despite how great he is. And And the Packers should be willing to accept a first-round pick in this year's draft. If you're moving on with Jordan Love, which they are looking to do, as they've had him on roster for 4 years now, and they need to see what they have in Jordan Love, you have the potential to surround him with a lot of talent if you get a first-round pick in this year's draft. They already have their own in the 20s. You draft a receiver, whether it's a Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State, a Jordan Addison from USC, Quentin Johnson from TCU. There's a lot of receivers to add to Christian Watson, who's also already on the Packers, who had a breakout season last year. So you could add another receiver to pair with Jordan Love. You could add a defensive player to create a monster defense. You could add a nice offensive lineman, as Bakhtiari's been injured a lot, and some other pieces on that team look to be on the way out with Rodgers leaving. The Jets, they finally get their franchise quarterback for the first time since Joe Namath over a million years ago. So how does the AFC fare with Aaron Rodgers joining the Jets? I'm going to give the top 8. There's 7 playoff spots. I think there's really 8 teams, maybe even 9. I mean, there might be 11. But these are how I would rank the teams in the AFC with Aaron Rodgers joining the Jets. I think clearly the number one team, not only in the AFC, but in the entire NFL, is the Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl champions, Patrick Mahomes, best player in the league, best quarterback. He is on the team. Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, oh my goodness, Chris Jones on the defensive side of the ball. The Chiefs, they're going to lose some pieces. They've already brought some guys in to fill out the roster. They're going to be good. They're going to be contenders for a Super Bowl as long as Patrick Mahomes is on the field for the Chiefs. Easily the best team in the NFL. I don't think there's any debate about that. Number 2 in the AFC, I think, is the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon in the backfield. I know they just lost Jesse Bates and Hayden Hurst and some other guys on the defense and on the offensive side of the ball. But as long as Joe Burrow is on the Bengals, they're going to be good. It's the same thing with the Chiefs as it is with the Bengals. As long as they have Joe Burrow at quarterback and Jamar Chase as a receiver, they're going to be competing for AFC championships and for Super Bowls for the next 10 years. Number 3 is where I'm going to put the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. They had a top 5 defense last season, a Super Bowl caliber defense for the Jets last season. They had Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year. The only problem with the Jets last season was they had the worst quarterback play, arguably, in the NFL. So adding Aaron Rodgers, a multiple-time MVP, a Super Bowl champion, a top, 7 quarterback in the NFL, is significantly going to improve this team on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense is going to be great, should be just as good, if not better, than last season. So adding Aaron Rodgers raises the ceiling of this offense, and I think raises the ceiling of this team to a true Super Bowl contender. Number 4, I'm going to put the Buffalo Bills. I think a lot of people are writing off the Bills and forgetting how good this team really is. Last season, they were great for basically the whole season. It was really when Von Miller went out with injury that this team started to struggle because they were not able to effectively put pressure and rush the quarterback on the defensive side of the ball. I know Josh Allen had his moments of red zone interceptions and careless mistakes with the football last season, but he's still, in my opinion, a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And as long as he's on the team, they have Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Von Miller, Justin Poirier, Micah Hyde. This team is going to be very, very good next season. If they add a running back, it'll be even better. This team's still a contender despite their bad playoff loss to the Bengals and their rough patches throughout last season. They're going to be great. I don't think their Super Bowl window is closed just yet. I still think it's open for the Bills. They're the 4th best team in the AFC, in my opinion. Number 5 is the Jaguars. This team went 9-8 last season, beat the Chargers in the wild card almost. They had a potential to beat the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round. Trevor Lawrence, top 10 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. Travis Etienne in the backfield, and one of the, if not the best receiving room in the NFL. It's rivals Cincinnati Bengals receiving core. added Calvin Ridley. They traded for him last season, wasn't able to play. He got reinstated by the league. He'll be on this team next season as the true number one receiver for Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk was the number one last year. He's going to slide over to the wide receiver 2. Great wide receiver 2. Zay Jones, Evan Ingram at tight end, Travis Etienne in the backfield. And then that defense, whatever they decide to do with their first round pick, I think if they improve, their defense was not bad last season. Obviously, it wasn't as great as previous Jacksonville Jaguar defenses, but Trevor Lawrence is going to be able to carry this team. They're the favorites in that division with the Texans, Colts, and Titans all looking to be bottom teams in this conference. The Jaguars should win 12, 13 games next season. I have them as the 5th best team in the AFC. All right, number 6 is the Chargers. Justin Herbert is an absolute beast, and we'll see what this Chargers team is able to do next season. They're losing a good amount of pieces. Eckler might be on his way out. Keenan Allen is rumored to be gone. They might be moving on from Khalil Mack. But this team with Justin Herbert, as long as he's their quarterback, they're going to be a great team competing. Now, obviously, they have to compete against Mahomes in the division, so I don't ever see them winning that division. But they're always going to be a wild card team with Justin Herbert. It's just a matter of will they be able to put it together in the playoffs when it matters the most. I still have them as a contender. Number 6 in the AFC. Number 7, I have the Dolphins. The Dolphins, I think, have a better all-around roster than the Chargers. The only reason I have the Chargers higher is because of the quarterback position. Tua is very injury prone. Had multiple concussions last season, and heading into next season, will he be able to stay on the field enough to carry this Dolphins team? Now, they are bringing in Mike White from the Jets to be the backup quarterback, which is a nice addition. He played great in some moments with the Jets last season. That's the only reason I have the Chargers ahead of the Dolphins. I think the receivers are better with Waddle and Hill. The tight end position is better with Gesicki. And then the corners are way better than the Chargers corner room. Xavier Howard bringing over Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb in the pass rush. I really like this Dolphins team. It's just a matter of will Tua be able to stay healthy and on the field, because when he was on the field last season, he was great for, there was a few games where he had some rough patches, but he had that stretch of 8-0 when he was healthy and starting on the field for the Dolphins. It's just a matter of will he be able to stay healthy and on the field. Then number 8, I have the Ravens. I think the Ravens will be bringing back Lamar. I think no matter what team decides to offer him, he's going to be a Raven. But this Baltimore team has a lot of work to do. They don't have receiving weapons for him. Their running game's not that great. Obviously, they have Mark Andrews at the tight end position. That defense is solid. But the Ravens have a lot of work to do. It's not just bringing back Lamar and they're a Super Bowl contender. They need to get him receivers. They need to get him offensive line. They need to get him defense. They have a lot of work to do. I still think they're going to be a playoff contending team. I have them as the 8th best team in the AFC right now. But they need to go out there. They need to get DeAndre Hopkins. They need to go get a receiver in the draft. They need to help out Lamar so when he does come back, he has guys that are playmakers, because he hasn't really had playmakers throughout his time in Baltimore. And then rounding it out, I have the Raiders as the 9th best team. It's the defense that really holds them back. 10th is the Patriots. Mac Jones is kind of mid. 11th, Steelers. 12th, Broncos. 13 Titans. 14 Browns. 15 Colts. 16 Texans. So yeah, I think the Jets adding Aaron Rodgers bumps them up to a top 3 team in the AFC. I think they're better than the Bills. I don't think it's by much. I think they're very close. They're interchangeable, honestly. But Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is a big-time move in terms of AFC contenders. All right, 2 more things on this episode. We got March Madness starting up. It already started. We had the first 4 games yesterday, and I think we have a few more today, and then it officially starts on Thursday with the round of 64. I filled out a lot of brackets. I think I have 6 March Madness brackets. I think all of them have different people winning the championship. I did I did just random brackets of just picking different teams, different rounds, and then I did a heads or tails bracket. But through that, I found that these are basically the constant teams that I have making the Final Four. These are the 2, 4, 6, 7 teams I have making the Final Four consistently throughout my brackets. There are some other teams that do make some appearances, but not as much as these teams. Those teams that make appearances are Creighton. They make an appearance a few times. I think Michigan State made an appearance once. But these 7 teams are the teams that I find throughout my brackets have made the Final Four the most. Houston, they're a number 1 seed. They have been great. Now, the first thing I got to mention, I probably have watched 0 minutes of college basketball this season, so I don't know a lot. But I've been researching, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, watching a lot of shows about college basketball. So here's what I can kind of draw. When I was making my brackets, I don't really care about that kind of stuff. I just make it based off of each round. I mean, I have Drake beating Miami in the first round because Drake is a rapper. That's the only reason why I don't know anything about Drake as a school, as a basketball program. Even though they're a lower seed, Miami's a 5 seed. But Houston, I have them making the Final Four. They were a great team. I think the past 2 seasons, they've been one of the best teams in college basketball. Kansas, they won the national championship last season. I think they're a true contender for a title this season. UCLA, they were a first 4 team. I think it was last season. I like some of their playmakers, some of their shooters and their ball handlers. Alabama, they're the number 1 overall seed in the entire tournament. They're the best team in the country. Brandon Miller is the best college basketball player in the world right now. We'll see how far they go because they are a true number 1 seed. They are the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. And, sometimes those teams end up getting bounced, whether it's the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, Final Four. They might not make it all the way. I think they're likely to make it to the Final Four. Duke, they're a 5 seed. I have Duke making the Final Four because the region of the bracket they're in is pretty weak. Purdue's the 1 seed in that region. I think they get bounced early. You're looking at Memphis, Florida Atlantic, USC, Marquette, Michigan State, Kentucky, Providence. I think when you look at those schools that are in the bracket with Duke's easily, in my opinion, probably the best team out of that. I mean, Marquette hasn't been able to win tournament games for a few seasons now, and they're the 2 seed. Purdue's probably the most overrated number 1 seed in the tournament. Providence, I really like them. Kentucky, Kansas State, Michigan State. I like USC as an upset later on in the bracket, but I think Duke's easily the best team from that region. Arizona, they're in the same region as Alabama, so they could end up making it to the Final Four, but they'd have to beat Alabama to do so. I like them. They have great size, great length. They've been here before over the past few seasons. And then finally, number 7, I have UConn. None of this was in a specific order, but UConn, I think, based off of everything, they apparently have been, throughout the season, one of the teams that really looks like a true championship contender. They have great guard play, great shooting. They're just overall one of the better teams in the tournament. So those are the 7 teams I found making the Final Four the most. And maybe I ultimately do decide to film a video that I might put out. I honestly might do it, of just my Final Four bracket. I'll do one bracket that I'll post on the channel. But those are some of the teams I find making the Final Four. We'll do that. We'll do that video. Right after this one, I'll record that one. All right, finally, National League East preview. We've done every single division except for this one right here, and this is arguably the best division in Major League Baseball, the National League East. So let me pull up Fangraphs real quick. All right, finishing in first place this season in the NL East, I have the Atlanta Braves finishing in first place. I have them winning 100-plus games this season. I think the Braves, throughout the offseason, have been a forgotten team. And when you have teams like the Mets and teams like the Phillies spending trillions of dollars this offseason to improve their roster and making insanely big moves, I think the Braves are rightfully so going to get overlooked. They lost Dansby Swanson at the shortstop position, but they added one of the best catchers in the game. So going through the lineup, Ronald Acuna Jr. is an MVP candidate. Last season he was still coming back from his injury. He was an all-star, didn't have the best season, but I think this year you're looking at him being another MVP, having another MVP-type season like he's had in the past. Matt Olson at the first base position, one of the best first basemen defensively and offensively in the game. Austin Riley is one of the best power-hitting third basemen in the game. He hits for power and average. He's an MVP candidate, in my opinion, this season. Absolute stud. Sean Murphy at the catching position, they just got him over from the Oakland A's. He's arguably the best defensive catcher in Major League Baseball, and he has 20 home run power as well. Michael Harris, the second in center field. This guy just won Rookie of the Year last season. He's a 20 homer, 20 stolen base, 280 average kind of hitter. He's going to be an absolute stud in center field. Ozzie Albies at second base. I think this guy's very underrated. There are a lot of people that want to say, oh, his advanced numbers don't look great, or he's not the best hitter, he's not the best defensive second baseman. He's still a very impactful player for this Braves team. Marcell Ozuna, Eddie Rosario, Vaughn Grisham round out the lineup. Vaughn Grisham's going to be interesting. He's replacing Dansby Swanson at shortstop. We'll see what this guy's able to do. He's 22 years old, drafted in 2019 in the 11th round. Projecting him to hit 10 homers, 13 stolen bases, 262 average. His defense last season wasn't the best in his limited time at the big league level. If he can clean that up, I mean, that's really all they need. They just need someone to put out there at that shortstop position that is able to be somewhat productive. Their bench, Travis d'Arnaud is a great catcher, Orlando Arcia, Sam Hillard, Jordan Luplow. And in this rotation, I think this is the best pitching rotation in this division. Max Fried was a Cy Young candidate last season from the left side. Kyle Wright was a 20-game winner last season. Charlie Morton, the 40-year-old, still pitching at an extremely high level. Spencer Strider, the rookie last season, who had an absolutely amazing year. And then also, there's some guys in the minors. They're starting in the minors. They might make the big league roster, but they will be up at some point. Ian Anderson had a great year in 2021. 2022 was a bad season for him. If he turns it around and plays like he did in 2021, this team's 5-man deep rotation. They also have Mike Soroka, who's still, this guy had his Achilles injured. I think it was 2019, missed 2020, came back in 2021, got injured again. He's just had a lot of setbacks. He's only 20. I think he's 23 years old. This guy has so much potential on the mound. So, if one of those guys can tap into their potential this season and stay healthy, this Braves rotation is 5 deep with a bullpen of Raisel Iglesias, AJ Minter, Colin McHugh, Nick Anderson, Kirby Yates, Dylan Lee, one of the best bullpens in all of Major League Baseball. So I have the Braves winning 100-plus games. They did it last season. They won the World Series the year before that. I think this is easily the best team in this division and one of the best teams in all of baseball. Finishing in second place, I have the Phillies. I think they can win 95 to 100 games next season. They won 87 games last season and made it to the World Series, and this team definitely improved. Now they're going to be missing Bryce Harper for like half of the season. He's projected to come back June, July with Tommy John surgery. But this team is still great. They added Trey Turner in the offseason to play shortstop. He's going to be batting leadoff. They still have Kyle Schwarber, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos, Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott, and Brandon Marsh playing some amazing defense out there in center field. This lineup is absolutely amazing. This team made it to the World Series last year, and then they added Trey Turner to play that shortstop position. Top 1, top 2 shortstop in the game of baseball. And this rotation got better too. Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler still headline the top of this rotation, and then they're adding in Taijuan Walker coming over from the rival Mets. This guy's had a great past few seasons with the New York Mets. They're projecting him to have a 4.4 ERA. I think that's way too high. Taijuan Walker, when he's on the field the past few seasons, has been a very underrated pitcher. I think you're looking at him having a 3.6, 3.7, maybe even a 3.8 ERA. Ranger Suarez has some great moments in the postseason last year. And then they have one of the best pitching prospects in the game that might be able to come up at some point this season, and that's Andrew Painter. He's 19 years old. I think he's 6'7" right-handed pitcher. This guy throws an absolute electric fastball and some other electric off-speed pitches as well. This guy, I think he's going to be at some point this season. I don't think he'll come up right away. He won't make the opening day roster, but you're looking at him coming up if they need some pitching help. June, July, August, to go in and help them on a playoff run. And then this bullpen improved too. So Anthony Dominguez, Jose Alvarado, Craig Kimbrell, Gregory Soto. I think this team's definitely improved. I mean, they've made it to the World Series last season, and I think this team, they got better. And then third place, I'm going to put the Mets here. They won 101 games last season. Yeah, they won just as many games as the Braves last season, but they missed out on winning the division based off of head-to-head matchups versus the Braves. This team made the most noise in the offseason, easily. They lost Jacob deGrom, but they brought in Justin Verlander. They brought in Kodai Senga, they already had Carlos Carrasco, Jose Quintana. This team, they almost brought in Carlos Correa at one point this offseason. This team made a lot of noise. They made a lot of moves, signed a lot of people to a lot of money, brought back Brandon Nimmo. But in terms of why I have them in third place, I think they can win 90 to 100 games. So they're going to be just as good as the other two teams above them. I just think their lineup is not as strong, and their pitching rotation for me is just a little too old. Their lineup is great, though. Brandon Nimmo, center fielder, leading off. This guy's an absolute stud. Starling Marte playing the right field position. He can still steal 30 bases at 35 years old and play some good defense out there. Francisco Lindor, in my opinion, is one of the best shortstops in the game. Pete Alonso is like the best power hitter next to Aaron Judge in the game of baseball. Jeff McNeil at second base, the batting champ. Daniel Vogelbach at the DH. Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar at that third base position. Omar Narvaez. And then you're looking at them having Francisco Alvarez, the number 2 prospect in the game at that catcher position. Brett Beatty came up last season. He might play some third base for them this year, depending on Escobar's play. This rotation is great. Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Kodai Senga, Carlos Carrasco, David Peterson, Jose Quintana. He just got injured, so he'll be out for months. This bullpen, Edwin Diaz was the best reliever in the game last season. Adam Ottavino, David Robertson, Brooks Raley, Drew Smith. The only reason I don't like this team as much as the Braves and the Phillies is the age of their top players. Verlander is 40, Scherzer is 38. Scherzer missed weeks last season with an injury. Verlander, he's a few years removed from Tommy John, but he's 40 years old. We'll see how he's able to handle this season. Kodai Senga is 30, coming over from Japan. Carrasco is 36. Quintana is 34, and he's already injured. This lineup, I don't think it's as deep as the Phillies and as the Braves. I think the weak spots in this lineup are Eduardo Escobar. Narvaez is a weak spot for me, in my opinion. Vogelbach doesn't provide much offensively. He really doesn't. He can hit for power, but he's not going to be able to get on base, and he's not going to be able to hit for average. I just don't think he's as productive as some of the other players in this division. Mark Canha is a solid player, but he's a guy that you could be looking at it and say he could have a down season. So I think this team is really a top 5 heavy lineup compared to the Phillies that I think are 1 through 9, maybe have a 1 through 7 kind of team, and then of course the Braves. I think they're a 1 through 8 kind of lineup. Potentially a 1 through 9 in terms of depth. I still think the Mets will make the playoffs. I have them winning 90 to 100 games. I'm just not as high as them. I'm not as high as them as I am on other teams in this division. All right, fourth place, I have the Miami Marlins. I think they win between 70 and 80 games this season. They have one of the best pitching rotations in the sport, but their offense is what's been holding them back for the past few seasons now. This lineup, Jazz Chisholm, he's going to be playing center field. He said he's going to go out there and win a Gold Glove. If he's healthy, he's one of the best players on the planet. Actually, he's really, really good. 25 homers, 28 stolen bases projected for him if he's on the field. Jorge Soler, they brought him over last offseason from the Braves. If this team wants to have success, they need him to put it together offensively. Luis Arias, they brought him over from the Twins in the Pablo Lopez trade. He's the reigning AL batting champ. Garrett Cooper at first base. Avisail Garcia, he's another key X factor for them offensively. Gene Segura, Joey Wendell, Brian De La Cruz is a very promising young player, in my opinion. Jacob Stallings at that catcher position. And then another player This guy's on their bench. I think this guy has some really nice raw potential, and that's Jesus Sanchez, 25-year-old outfielder. He's a guy that, in my opinion, is a key X factor for this team from the left-handed side of the batter's box. He provides, he had I think it was a 500-foot nuke in Colorado last season. He's a guy that I look at. If this team wants to have success offensively, you need Jazz Chisholm to be healthy, Jorge Soler to hit dingers, Luis Arias to replicate last season. You need Garcia to hit homers. You need De La Cruz to put it together. And I think you need Jesus Sanchez as well. This rotation is still really good. Sandy Alcantara won the Cy Young last season. He's there. Number one pitcher in this rotation. Jesus Luzardo has had some up and down times. Johnny Cueto, they brought him in. Trevor Rogers was a Rookie of the Year, I think in 2020, 2021 in the National League. Edward Cabrera has some absolute electric stuff. They still have Sixto Sanchez in the minor leagues. Yuri Perez, Max Meyer. This pitching rotation is an absolute... They're just absolutely insane on that pitching side for the Marlins. Their bullpen solid too. Dylan Floro, Matt Barnes, AJ Puck. So this team has potential to be really, really good. Like they really do. Just is banking on how their offense plays. Can their offense hit? Can their offense drive in runs? Because their pitching is going to be lights out, night in and night out. Like I said, I have them winning 70 to 80 games. I think a max ceiling, like the most they can win this season, is 85 wins, 85 games. And then last place is the Washington Nationals. This is one of the worst teams in baseball. Their lineup: Lane Thomas, Corey Dickerson, Joey Meneses, Jaime Candelario, Keibert Ruiz, Dominic Smith, CJ Abrams, Victor Robles, Luis Garcia. The really two guys that there's three guys I'm really looking at in this lineup. CJ Abrams, coming over from the Juan Soto trade from San Diego, going to play shortstop. This guy has some really good potential. So if he can put it together, they found themselves a shortstop. Luis Garcia at second base. This guy has some nice offensive skills. I think Keibert Ruiz, who just signed an extension with with the Nationals. He came over in the Max Scherzer, Trey Turner trade. So we'll see what they can get out of those guys. And then their rotation is really bad as well. Patrick Corbin, Josiah Gray, Trevor Williams, Mackenzie Gore, Chad Cole, the bullpen, Carl Edwards Jr., Hunter Harvey, Alex Colomé. They're still going to be missing Steven Strasburg. This guy's been injured for ever. Cade Cavalli as well. So the Nationals, they have guys. They have four guys that I'm really looking at next season and saying those guys hopefully have big seasons, good seasons, so that way this Nationals team knows what pieces to build around. Ruiz and Abrams are the two ones in the lineup that you're really looking at right now and saying those guys need to have good seasons so we know we have a catcher and we have a shortstop for the future. And then in the rotation, it's Mackenzie Gore, who at one point was I think he was the highest rated pitching prospect in baseball, especially from that left-handed side. Look for him to hopefully have a good season. And Josiah Gray, who came over in the trade for Scherzer and Trey Turner a few seasons ago. The Nationals, though, they got some really good prospects. James Wood, the outfield prospect, is an absolute stud. He has some of the best raw power in the game. Cade Cavalli, Robert Hassel III, Elijah Green somewhere down in there as well. Brady House, Cole Henry. So this team has a future. I think they're one of the better teams in terms of rebuilding teams that are going to be good soon and have some pieces in their system. I think they're one of the worst teams in the game. But I have them winning between 50 and 65 games next season. So that is how I see the NL East going. Braves with 100+ wins, Phillies 95 to 100, Mets 90 to 100, Marlins 70 to 80, and the Nationals 50 to 65 wins. That will do it for this episode of The Franchise. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. We'll be back with another episode of The Franchise very, very soon.